This is Nancy Leader on the Zeta Report. The Zetas state that the pole shift happens within an hour, forcing the Earth's crust to move 90 degrees as it drags along with the magnetic core of the Earth, which is desperately trying to align with Planet X, that bully magnetic planet passing overhead. When it's over, North will have become West, and the former poles will be on the equator. What happens during this hour? The Earth moves under her blanket of air and water. This causes hurricane-force winds worldwide and immense sloshing of the oceans. Tsunami on occasion assaults the coastline, but the tidal wave caused by the pole shift is larger, pushing further inland and rising higher than tsunami. For the Zetas, the general guideline is to be 100 miles in from the coastline and 200 feet above sea level. All coastlines are thus unsafe, but especially vulnerable are those cities on the water's edge, like New York City, Miami, LA, Hong Kong, Sydney, Osaka, Rio de Janeiro. Oh my, the list just goes on and on. River bottom lands are particularly vulnerable, even when inland. Hurricane winds bring torrential rain, with rivers backing up and unable to drain. Imagine your peaceful river valley flooded, as Burma was recently by a cyclone, taking weeks to drain. Okay, so water on the move is very scary, and being in a safe location definitely includes being on high ground. Anything else? Best to put yourself at least 100 miles away from any volcano likely to erupt. And per the Zetas, this includes any volcano active within the last 10,000 years. Volcanic ash certainly isn't healthy and can bury communities nearby. Heavy metals in the ash can poison drinking water, and the gloom makes gardening a near impossibility. Plan to be downwind from erupting volcanoes. And remember, the new prevailing westerlies will be blowing from what used to be north. When a volcano that had been asleep for over 9,000 years blew recently in Chile, the ash blew all the way across Argentina. Okay, so I'm off the coast and I'm on high ground, and I'm staying out of the wind drift from the volcanoes. Anything else? Some places have special vulnerability, such as flatland, when tornadoes can form in the whipping wind. Tornadoes stay above ground and rise over the hills, so being in a valley between hills or in a storm shelter below ground helps. Some places are particularly vulnerable to ocean sloshing, such as the inland valley of California, which per the Zetas will flood and stay flooded for weeks. The water coming in from the Pacific during the hour of the shift will roll right over the coastal mountains and pool in the valley. When the ocean sloshing encounters flat land, such as the land in eastern Texas that goes on and on like a pancake, the tidal waves rolling in have no reason to stop. Per the Zetas, Texas will be flooded all the way to the highlands, leaving Dallas flooded for weeks. How do I know if I'm in one of those special locations that is particularly worrisome? Read the Safe Locations documentation. This is a link on the menu on the Zeta Talk website. The Zetas have given hundreds of advisements about locations worldwide, and this is compiled into a document there. For instance, idyllic Caribbean islands. Just where would you go when the hour of the pole shift arrived? Escape by boat? Per the Zetas, boats will be swamped in whirlpools, and even submarines will lose their bearings. This is, after all, a magnetic pole shift. Lots of compass confusion. For instance, in areas subject to mountain building, general guideline: if the rock in the mountains surrounding you is sharp, recently broken, you're probably in trouble. Rock and roll can result. But even in amongst the building mountains, there is land that is flat and smooth, unbroken. like the Salt Lake Flats, for instance. Well, why is this? Per the Zetas, this rock is too hard to shatter. Per the Zetas, even Arizona benefits from that, as it has hard rock that won't shatter. But some of these areas are in the heavy traffic lane. Mountain building doesn't just move up, it also pushes over. The Continental Divide in the U.S. is one such trouble spot, as mountains on the Continental Divide can tend to push overland for many miles. Per the Zetas, this is going to affect Colorado and Nebraska. Best to be in the eastern parts of those states and out of the heavy traffic lane. The recent spate of quakes in China was in land just to the east of the Great Himalayas, which push east at that point. Some 700 dams in the Sichuan province are in danger of breaking. Oh, and that's another thing. If you're down water from a dam, that is not a safe location during the pole shift. Got that checklist going? Coastlines, floodplains, volcanoes, mountain building, and, oh yes, earthquake. Well, of course, the whole world will be affected with magnitude 9 earthquakes, so being in buildings or in cities would be devastating. Buildings fall down. They bang into each other when they sway during an earthquake and fall down. Quakes break open gas lines, causing explosions and fire. Lots and lots of fire. For land not over solid rock, more than jolting can occur, as the buildings can jiggle themselves into the ground. This is termed liquefaction, turning the ground into a type of quicksand. So, where does that leave you? Hopefully, 100 miles from the coastline, on high ground and out of the floodplains. 100 miles away from any volcanoes and upwind from that volcano. Out of active mountain building areas, or at least on solid, stable, flat ground. Out of cities and out of structures such as buildings or housing. Sounds a bit like camping. Until next time on the Zeta Report, this is Nancy Leader.